Well, let's get the difficult part over with first. All in favor of the beard, please raise your hand. All opposed? It's pretty even. Oh, the Jews. I apologize in advance if I offend you. But real change is possible only if we are honest about the failures of our past. So please, bear with me. I know I need to take a breath because I am so angry. I am angry at the Jewish establishment in America. They have failed us. Jewish organizations on campus watch the cancer called Students for Justice in Palestine metastasizing on their watch for the past 25 years. This hate was right under their noses, and they looked the other way. I'm angry at the Jewish establishment that raised money for decades to fight Jew hatred from the far right, while ignoring the no less dangerous threat from the far left. I am angry at settlers and ultra-Orthodox rabbis who consider territory the highest moral value in Judaism. It is not. Life and peace are the highest of all Jewish values. I am angry at liberal rabbis who were used for decades by so-called allies and still cannot own up to their naivete. I am angry. Angry at the liberal Jewish movement in America, whose social media since this crisis began has been almost entirely fluff. Summer camp, a Hebrew word for the day, and recipes. Their advice in the midst of our horror: when life gives you lemons, make the Israeli drink lemonana. It is so refreshing. I am angry at the heartlessness of Jews on the right who consider it necessary to, do what you gotta do. I'm angry that Jewish fanatics with a tiny handful of seats in the Knesset can determine the destiny of our homeland. And I'm angry at myself too. When the rabbi who spoke after me on a panel a few months ago asked the audience, "What's happened to us that we don't care about a dead baby anymore?" Well, that assumption astounded me. I wanted to wring that rabbi's neck, drinking the poison of our enemies. Of course we care about dead babies. The problem is that Hamas does not. Hamas is the problem. We are not. But this is Kol Nidrei, our quintessential moment of truth. And the truth is that I I do sometimes look away from the suffering of Gazans whose lives and freedom have been hijacked for a quarter century by Islama Nazis. Sometimes I do shrug my shoulders when the innocent suffer. We know who started it. We know they will never, ever say yes to peace. We all know war is ugly, but that is no excuse for an ugly soul. Al chet shechatanu, for the many ways we have shrugged and looked away. Teshuvah does not really mean repentance. It means to return. Can we? Can we admit our most base, inhumane feelings and turn from that anger? Can we turn toward hope? I know we can. And not because of any particular inside knowledge, but because of a well-known theory, a theory called punctuated equilibrium. If you ask most people to symbolize evolution, they will draw a constantly ascending line, as if evolution is a slow but always steady, always upward dynamic. But there is an alternative theory held by many biologists called punctuated equilibrium. The theory posits that species achieve a stasis. We plateau, and then something disruptive happens. Something punctures that equilibrium, and that disruption causes a rapid evolutionary gain. In other words, bad things lead to very powerful change. There is always an upside to the downside. It's like this joke about Mrs. Cantor. She was a widow for over 40 years. She's sitting at the water's edge in Miami Beach, bemoaning her lonely life. Next to her sits a gentleman who is in obvious need of some color. Mrs. Cantor asks, "So how come you're so pale?" "Well, I've been in jail for 28 years. 28 years? For what?" "For killing my third wife. I strangled her." "What happened to your second wife?" "I shot her." "And if I may ask, your first wife?" "Well, we had a fight and I pushed her off a building." After taking a few minutes to absorb this information, Mrs. Cantor leans closer to the man and she whispers, "So that means you are now a single man?" Theodor Herzl was a secular Viennese journalist covering the Dreyfus trial in France in 1894. Witnessing the blatant, phony anti-Semitic charges against Dreyfus and the Jew-hating masses, it inspired Herzl to right the Jewish state, literally creating modern Zionism, leading ultimately to the establishment of the State of Israel. Every generation of Jews gets its wake-up call, and we are in the midst of ours. While we would give anything to turn back the clock to October 6th, 2023, we can't. No one can have a better past. But we can come out of this hell with a better future. And in some ways, we already have. Yes, Jew hatred is festering in America and around the world. But there are so many new, vibrant, passionate leaders and philanthropists stepping up. They are not taking the failures or mediocrity of the arthritic Jewish establishment lying down. 2 of the 7 college students who testified before Congress about campus anti-Semitism were our Wilshire Boulevard Temple kids. One now works for AIPAC. The other has started an alternative to Hillel on 30 campuses, enabling Jewish students to advocate for themselves without apology. My friend Archie started Jubilon. She's the force behind those pink and white billboards all over America calling out Jew haters. This campus was reborn out of adversity. And look at it now. And look at all of us here. And look at all the beautiful families in our schools here. This all gives me so much hope. It has literally changed my feelings about this t-shirt that I saw for sale at a farmer's market in Omaha when I was there to speak last month. At first, I considered it the most un-Jewish sentiment ever printed on a shirt. It simply said, "What's the best that could happen?" But optimism is deeply Jewish. We are witnessing some of the best that could happen to us. And we are witnessing it again and again. I want to show you something. This is part of a Purple Heart medal earned by my friend Claire's father in World War II. He wasn't a Jew, but he was a prisoner. A bombardier shot down and captured behind enemy lines. There was precious little food in that POW camp. At one point, the Nazis dragged a dead, rotting horse into the camp and told the prisoners there would be nothing else to eat. They choked down what they could, and within hours became gut-wrenchingly sick in every way you can imagine. The next day, they were so desperate for food, they ate more. Steve, Claire said to me just days after October 7th, "I am so sorry for what happened, and I just don't know what I can say or what I can do. And then she placed this in my hand. My father received this for fighting the Nazis, and I want you to have it. I want you to know I care. A lot of us care. It was a gesture of such profound compassion. And with it, Claire pierced my armor of anger. Her light of empathy in this purple heart touched my broken heart so deeply. During the worst of life and loss, some people are kind, many even. There is always hope. Eli Sharabi was held hostage in Gaza for 491 days. The moment I was kidnapped, I will never forget the fear in my daughter's eyes. It was horrible. When they took me into Gaza, the first mosque we entered, they opened the door on the floor and we climbed down something like 30 meters. It looked like a perfect grave for me under Gaza. They broke my ribs. I couldn't breathe properly for 2 or 3 months. My friend needed to help me stand to go to the bathroom. They undressed us every 2 weeks to look for things. It's very, very humiliating. We were shackled with iron chains. Every step you make is no more than 3 inches. Eli lost 66 pounds. The handover was terrifying. He heard from the social worker greeting him in Israel, his mother and sister were waiting for him. Just bring my wife and my kids, he pleaded. She said, well, your mother and sister will tell you. Now, Eli says, I don't have the privilege to break. I am so grateful for my second chance. I think about my wife and my daughters, the life I missed, but I love life. I love life. People say to me, we lose simple things, but you lost your brother, your wife, and your daughters, and you are smiling today. How is that possible? I can't do anything to bring back my family. So the best thing I can do for their memory is to be optimistic and to be strong and to rebuild my life. If Eli can move from suffering to optimism, so can we. If he can transcend anger, so can I. Do you know what the Torah portion the rabbis chose for us to hear tomorrow commands us to do? Uvacharta v'chaim. Choose life. If Eli can choose life, so can we. Believe me, I am not campaigning for it, nor does the job exist. But if there was such a job as comforter and chief of the Jewish people, and I held that job, here is what I would say to all of us about our anger and our opportunity. I would remind us all that the day begins at midnight, the darkest hour, and that we see light through our pupil, the darkest part of our eye. I would remind us all that there really is a time for everything, a time to weep, and a time to laugh. That our people have sown with tears, but have reaped in joy. The sages require that even a blind person must recite the blessing over the new moon. Why? Why command someone to affirm what they cannot see? Because we are a people of faith, even in, especially in, the darkness. We are all imbued by God with the power of the sunflower. Young sunflowers are heliotropic, meaning throughout the day they turn toward the sun. And each night they reorient to face east in anticipation of the morning. We too can turn. We can evolve. When we fall, we can rise. Like Eli, we can emerge from the darkness, a buried seed bursting forth, turning toward the sun. We can use this agonizing puncture, this piercing of our hearts, to leave our stasis behind and create something better. We can turn from anger to action, from failure to change. With Torah, with each other, and with our faith, we can all choose life. We can all choose